facing head-on the emotions beneath the surface as we bridge from an old world of confusion and lack to a beautiful new world of freedom, abundance, and love with straightforward truth and inspired hope is what you'll find on The Charla Anderson Show. Collector and connector of fascinating people. And everyone is fascinating. Here's your host, Charla Anderson.
Good, beautiful day, you beautiful, beautiful souls. This is Charla Anderson, host of the Charla Anderson Show, collector and connector of fascinating people, and everyone is fascinating, especially you. We're live here on winwinwomen.tv and all those platforms from Roku and Amazon Fire, Apple TV, Podetize coming out with podcasts. And I'm so grateful to have you here that you would take some time and listen to my show. And, you know, who knows? I didn't know I was going to even be doing this just a few months ago. And here we are. I'm doing my 36th show today. I can't even believe it. And it's so exciting to have my publisher and my friend, Michael D Butler, here with me. And as you know, I always take a moment and get us grounded and centered and take a little deep breath. I call it a mini vacation. So we're going to take 22 seconds. We're going to take a little breath of breathing in. We're going to breathe in calm. We're going to hold for 4 seconds. I'm going to breathe out gratitude. So here we go. Join me and let's have a little settling down here. Ready? Breathing in calm. Hold. Release. Breathe out. Gratitude, gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very, I just love having that. It helps me. I hope it helps you. And it's a little exercise. We're so busy all the time that 22-second mini vacation is not a bad idea every once in a while. So thank you again for joining me. I want you to meet my book publisher, my friend, Michael D Butler from Beyond Publishing. And we are going to just discuss all kinds of things about how to write your book in 1 hour or 1 day. What is it? 1 hour? All kinds of things.
It's great to be with you on the show, Charla. Congratulations on all of these episodes. Wow. You're going into 2024 strong. Really proud of you and everything you've been able to accomplish. It's great to be here. It really comes down to write your book in an hour, could be, in some cases, write your book in 16 years. You know, it's just making a decision to do something, be it run a marathon, be it lose weight, be it reconnect with your kids, grandkids, whatever the goal might be, build a house, retire early, whatever, write a book. Those are all goals. And when it comes to achieving goals, you've got to decide you want to do it, but you've got to decide why you want to do it. And if your why is strong enough, then it'll happen. But it also very important to go public with your decision. So I was speaking to Toastmasters International the other day in California via Zoom, and I had a number of people, probably half the people on the Zoom, raise their hand to announce on social media, I will write my book this month. So they're going to write a book in 30 days. So you can literally write. We've had authors write the book in 2 days. And don't ask me how you do that. I guess you don't sleep, but it can be done if you decide to do it. Doesn't mean it's a final polished edit. It might just be a rough vomit draft, but decide you're going to do it and attach your why to it, why you're going to do it. So if you're wanting to lose weight, you say, I want to lose weight because I want to be around for my grandkids and my great grandkids. I want to be healthy. You set those goals, you set your intention, you attach a strong why. I want to write this book because I am the credible source in my industry. I want to attract leads. I want to attract referrals. I want to get on more stages. I want to get more media interviews. Whatever your why is, and you haven't done it yet, you're probably already a master subject expert at your industry. And I used to say to people, Charla, because I've been in business for years, and before that in the church world of nonprofits. And I said, if we get the same question 3 times from a customer, let's print a brochure. This was pre-internet. And so I said, if we get the same question, there's other people asking questions, kind of like, you know, every time somebody calls their congressperson, they represent thousands of other people that have the same feeling, but just never made the phone call or sent the letter. So when you make the decision to do it and you set the intention, you just go make it happen. But it's great to be here with you.
Well, thank you. I always am amazed at your energy, first of all, your wisdom and all this, the encouragement that you have to get people out here. Just write your book. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be a big ordeal. It doesn't have to be your life story all in one time. It could be a chapter of your life. It could be a tiny little book, a big with, your message. Candy bar hugs, a tiny book with a big message.
You're teasing us with this candy bar, and then you're taking it out of the frame, and we're like, wait a minute, what was that?
I mean, yes, Candy Bar Hugs. It's behind me, but we took it bestseller in July of this year, relaunching it with Beyond Publishing. I had self-published it a few years ago. So it's as long as it's your message, right? As long as it comes from your heart, as long as what you want it to be, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be prolific necessarily. It just needs to be your word. So what do you think about, what do you not put in a book? I mean, if I'm going to sit down and write a book, how do, where do you start, all that, and what do you not put in it?
That's really the thing. 85% of Americans want to write a book. Only 15% ever do. And last year, there were 4 million new books published with ISBN numbers. And that doesn't count the millions published outside the US without ISBN numbers. And so if you're really going to make an impact with your book, because most people that write a book that are surveyed, they want to make an impact with their message. They want to write a credibility book. Most of them say, I'm writing this book for credibility or to attract new customers. Now, 70% of books consumed globally are fiction books. So if you're writing that 30%, 40% that are nonfiction how-to books, then that's a different market, a different thing. But here's what I've observed, Charla, in my 6 years as a publisher, but also in just being an avid reader and knowing the industry, studying the industry for years. We actually had our first author in 2010. So I've been at this for 12 years. Before we started the publishing company, we had a PR firm that marketed authors, that got authors in the news and on social media and things like that. We were marketing authors on MySpace before anybody but Harvard students were on Facebook. So that gives you an idea of how far back we went. And I think I was the first person that tweeted an entire book on Twitter back when they had a different owner. And Title Card Pictures out of Vancouver picked it up. It was a book on human trafficking by a former Mrs. California. And I said, this is really a good book. She had written it in 14 days using the principles that I teach in my course, Write Your Book in 1 Hour, and that I put into my book Idea to Bestseller in 30 days. This is one of these products you're talking about, writing a book and it, publishing it, and not being done. I wrote this for the media because back in August, I had several media outlets in Las Vegas, in Detroit, in Colorado, and in Texas that want to interview me about this book because they said, November is Write Your Novel month, novel writing month. And so they wanted to get some interviews by publishers in the queue. And so I said, I did a series of videos called 52 Author Secrets. I'm going to turn that into a book called Book Idea to Bestseller in 30 Days. And as a bonus, I'm going to include the transcriptions of those 52 60-second videos that were based on the 52 frequently asked questions we get from new authors, like, how do I get global distribution for my book? Why do I put on the back cover of the book? How do I go bestseller on Amazon before my book even launches? All these questions. How do I get media interviews? All of that we cover in Book Idea to Bestseller. But, I got to thinking about it, Charla, and I grew up on the farm in Oklahoma, and I realized we'd go to farmers markets and all this kind of stuff. We lived on organic fruits and vegetables. And I realized that writing a book is like shoveling horse manure. And what do I mean by that? Well, I remember when I was 7 years old, we had a 1 acre farm. We bought a farm in the country. And my mom and dad had a rule in the summertime that my brother and I, he's 9, I'm 7, we couldn't play with our friends or go swimming or play baseball until we worked in the garden from the time we woke up until noon. Come noon, it was lunchtime. The rest of the day we could play. But for the first 6-7 hours a day, we had to work. And so I didn't enjoy, the first thing we had to do was shovel truckloads of horse manure, because horse manure is almost as good as chicken manure to grow your farm. And there had never been a farm planted there. This was just beef cattle. And my dad bought a tiller and he'd be out there tilling the land up. And it was fun to watch him do this. And he'd let us try a couple times. And I'm 7 and this thing's getting away from me. And I'm about to run over my dog and bad things were going to happen. But the point I'm trying to make is everybody wants and loves fresh fruits and vegetables from the garden. We love the watermelon and the strawberries and the delicious pumpkin pies and things like that. But nobody's willing to shovel the manure. And when you start writing your book, it's a lot like that because you go through a lot of minutia and manure of the things you've been through in your life up to that point. Now, it's not to say that's what you should put in the book, but see, here's what happens. I'm 55 years old and I've got a house in South Texas. And in the backyard this summer, I said, I'm going to plant a garden. And so I go out and buy one of those tillers like my dad had, and I tilled up the ground. And I realized it was pretty tough because there's sod. So I got to pull up the sod. I thought I could just shovel it up. Literally, I'm on my hands and knees ripping the sod up with my fingernails were bleeding. But I had delicious vegetables. I had beets and radishes and carrots and tomatoes and basil this summer because I just planted a little 12 by 15 plot. But I hauled in manure. I hauled in, fertilizer. I hauled in good soil and all those things, because when you're writing a book, you might be writing about trauma and tragedy and all those things. But if you're writing a memoir, that's the slowest moving category of a book. And Charla, if your goal is to sell books, most people don't read memoirs. That's the slowest moving category next to poetry. You can turn your tragedy into the 3 steps to triumph you learned during your tragedy and make it a how-to book. How to recover from a broken relationship, how to recover from a business failure, how to 5 steps to recover from bankruptcy, 7 steps to reconnect with your kids after divorce. That's what people are Googling. That's what people are searching for. And in nonfiction, how-to books are the #1 category. So while you're shoveling the manure, I've had so many authors tell me writing this book was better than therapy. It was cheaper than therapy. That's true. But I say write the book, but maybe we don't publish 100% of that. Maybe we only publish 5% of that. And the rest of it is focused on where you're at now. And you're looking back and saying, this is how I got there. And when you're on a podcast like this, you're not keeping us stuck in the minutia with you, but you're letting people enjoy the fruit of your labor because you decided to finally write the book, to finally help people and show people what was possible if they would just get started. Yeah.
So everyone has a story, right? Everyone has stories. There's nobody on the face of the earth that doesn't have something that has happened in their life that they, and so many people just feel like, and often it's like, well, it's just what happened, it's just what happened to me. But when you start, I guess, finessing it into a believable story and some humor and the overcoming and all of those things, that's where it really, the rubber meets the road. You can actually get some traction and find some readers. I mean, people want to know. People are so interested. And you also talked about a statistic that there are more readers right now than there were. We think that people are always online, but they're not necessarily always online right now. And that more readers are outside of the US. Don't you have a couple of big points there?
The internet, we thought the internet killed publishing, but readership is actually up globally. Now, it's not necessarily Americans that are reading. 85% of Americans never buy or read another book after college graduation, which is super sad. But what you got to realize, if you're writing a book right now, you realize that 90% of global book readers are women. So no matter what your topic is, you've got to realize that if I'm writing a book, probably going to be more women than men reading this book. Just like me with my first book was the Single Dad Survival Guide. I knew that really read books. So the way I packaged that book and presented it was as a gift package for the single man in your life going through divorce. And we market it to women, and it does really well around Father's Day all the time. And I still get asked to be on podcasts every Father's Day. But the point is, you've got to really know who your reader is and know that 76% of book buyers that read books in English are buying your book outside of the US. So think about that. As you're writing your book, that if it's date specific, if you're talking about things that are culturally relevant only to the US, it might not pack a punch in other countries. So be aware. You want to create a product that's evergreen. You want to make your book about principles and not so much about pop culture, unless your topic is pop culture. And you can get involved right now. You can make the decision. I'm going to write every day. You put it on social media. You say 30 days from now, I'm launching a book. And you sit down at the computer at the same time, you write at the same location every day. And just like going to the gym, what happens is you start to get excited. You begin to train yourself. The hardest part about working out is going to the gym. Sit down in front of your computer at the same time every day. My writing time is 5 a.m. every morning. I write every morning at that time. Sometimes I write for 5 minutes. Sometimes I write for 5 hours. It depends on what I have going on. I write until the inspiration leaves. Sometimes it's 2 pages. Sometimes it's a paragraph. Sometimes it's only 1 sentence or 1 word, but I captured it strong and I left it and I got up. And it's so much better to do that. You know, some people never get started, Charla, because they have what I call the Ernest Hemingway effect. And the Ernest Hemingway, or I should say the Ernest Hemingway syndrome. And, you know, Ernest Hemingway is one of the greatest writers that ever lived, and Old Man of the Sea. I've been by his house in Florida Keys, and just amazing. And they say, because I'm not Ernest Hemingway, I'm not going to write and publish my book. Listen, you're never going to be Ernest Hemingway. I'm never going to be Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was never Ernest Hemingway until he wrote and published his first book. So just get started and the magic begins to happen. You're not going to produce a perfect draft. It's going to be what I call a vomit draft, and that's okay. And most people are stuck in their head of perfection, and they with one side of their brain are trying to be creative, and the other side of their brain, they're trying to edit at the same time. You have to turn off the editing side of your brain, stay in creative mode, and just start writing.
I was in a group many years ago, and they said PPP, pen to paper and push. Now you know, that's translates a little differently now. Fingers on keys to and type, you know, whatever. But it really was in that instance, you know, what am I going to write? You just start doodling or something. You just start getting your motion of your pen writing, and next thing you know, something comes out.
I love that, because the question is, who am I writing the book for, and what do I want them to do? What action do I want them to take? Maybe I want them to improve their credit score by 30 points in 90 days since the pandemic, and you're an expert, maybe you're a mortgage lender, and you're writing a book on that because that's going to help generate leads and clients to your business. People want to do business with you. They want to buy a house, but maybe they just got out of college, have some debt, or they got hit by the pandemic or something, and they don't know how to get their score up. You write a book that attracts that lead you. I did exactly that, because half or more of the authors that we published 791 titles, and I would say 300 of our authors are speakers, Charla, like yourself. And so I decided, hey, I've been training speakers for years. I've been speaking myself for years in multiple industries. Why don't I write a book about it? Finding the speaker's edge is turning your part-time passion into your full-time speaking career, speaking from stage, speaking online. And I've been teaching this in masterminds and in workshops and webinars and on stage, and I just put it into a book. This was not transcribed from videos, but this was actual case studies from amazing speakers like the greatest woman orator of all time, Amy Semple McPherson, the lady that started the first FM radio station that had 20,000 people coming to her church in Los Angeles in the 20s as a single mom. She had people like JFK and Marilyn Monroe and Ronald Reagan all visited her church, and people from Hollywood. I talk about people like that in here. I talk about Joel Osteen. I talk about people that run great nonprofits, and they do amazing things. And so check it out. And so that book became a lead magnet for me, because I'm a member of the National Speakers Association, and I speak a lot to Toastmasters and NSA members. But this book has opened so many doors for me, for people that since the pandemic are saying, wow, I didn't know I could make so much money speaking online. And so one thing I realized during the pandemic is we had this course called, back then it was called Write Your Book in 60 Days. And I realized it was going to be a lot funner to take the concept of write your book in 60 days and put it into write your book in 1 hour, because people are busy. Because once you make the decision to write it, just like you said, PPP or whatever you need, hang things on the refrigerator. I find with me, the way I write when I'm not at the computer, because I spend a lot of time in the car, is I record audio, and I can just hit that button even when I'm driving. I record the audio with my outline. I plug it into my transcriber, and then I go to work. I've organized my thought. I figured out what my next book is and what my table of contents are. And so right now I'm writing 2 books before Christmas. As I'm writing My Mom Made Me Millions, and I talk about the 12 attributes I learned from my mother, like memorization, like honesty, like integrity, like business success, like follow-up, like prospecting, like customer service. I learned all these things from my mom. And she only had a high school education. She never went to college, and I learned them all from her. And the other book I'm writing is called Billionaire Influence. And I talk about I profile 12 different billionaires that are doing good in the world and how to think like a billionaire. And so I'm going to launch My Mom Made Me Millions first, because I think it's a little off-putting if I come out with a billionaire book before I tell people why you want to get wealthy. You want to get wealthy so you can help more people. And so I say, look at what you've got right now. Look at what you're speaking about right now. Look at what you're coaching on or doing a workshop on, or you're doing one-on-one with client education and you're benefiting them in your office. Maybe it's an old school brochure that you're educating clients with. Hey, that can go into a book. Now, I'm not saying you should take all of your blog posts and recycle those. Those could kind of be stale and boring. But if you got evergreen content that's powerful and it's based on frequently asked questions and it's targeted to your target customer with the action you want them to take, you may have the makings of a book right there.
So there are a couple of different ways of doing it. One, if you're writing something to a niche market, it's different than writing. I mean, you're talking about United States and out overseas. So if you're going to write something about getting mortgages, getting your credit score, that's a niche market in our country, right? So I guess there's different levels of that kind of direction. I wouldn't think that other countries would be that interested in that. But what I do know is, if, for instance, a dentist, you write a book about, not about cleaning your teeth, but about their story, and it can be, really presented in a way that is extremely powerful.
Yeah, it really depends. It really depends on what the topic is, how much of an application it is globally. And I think you just do a disclaimer at the front, either an editor's note or in the introduction. You realize, hey, since the world is flat now because of the internet, I realize people are going to read this all over the world. And particularly if it's a book on finance or insurance or a heavy regulated area, you just make the application and say, hey, this may or may not work for your country. Check it out. But there's some broad general ideas here and principles that are going to work, and you just make them fit for your country. But I say this, there's no idea that's really original. And some people don't start writing because they're like, well, I don't really have any original ideas. They want to reinvent the wheel. And the point is, I say, it's what I call the Kim Kardashian effect. And, the Kim Kardashian effect is Kim Kardashian is the most recognized billionaire dollar brand in the world. And she's very strategic on what she posts on social media and the call to action she wants her followers to take. So as you decide who you're writing the book for, what action you want them to take, and you outline the table of contents, you want to be very clear on what action you want the reader to take. And you also want to test it, and you want to push it out, because you want to get feedback from your tribe, and they can help you actually tweak your content. And so that's a great thing to let your tribe know that you've got content coming. And don't worry if it sounds like somebody else's content, because there's nothing new under the sun. It might be new and original to you. Now, I'm not saying you go plagiarize anybody's content, but what I am saying is, we have one Think and Grow Rich. We have one Bible. Obviously you can't go out and plagiarize that content, but listen, we were all inspired by a lot of the same sources, and certainly you're going to cite your source and you're going to quote them if it's 9 words or more, but you're not going to hold off on writing your book just because it's not original content. Somebody needs to hear it specifically from you, and it's all about the way you apply it. So what I'm going to teach you how to do on our next webinar is how to write a chapter in 20 minutes. If you've been stuck and you haven't been able to write your book in 16 years, I say, let's break it down. I have 2 sons that are chefs, Charla, and they're like, Dad, there's only 4 food groups. It's all about the preparation and the presentation. So we're going to help you write a chapter in 20 minutes. It's going to come together quickly because you're going to figure out who your reader is, what action you want them to take, and what you want your book to do for you.
So I have a quote that I carry around in my little day timer thing. It's on a sticky note, and it says, there are some people who will only hear the truth the way you tell it. And that's Linda Pesavento. I found that quote, but I love it because so many people think, well, who am I? Who am I? What do I have to say? Who cares? And, literally there are people that can only hear your message the way you tell it. And so that has been a very big inspiration for me that, let's just do it. Let's get it out there. With 8 billion people in the world, there's somebody that will relate to your story more than they will to others. And I'm really, I'm excited. We have one of our participants that's in here, and we can maybe open it up if she wants to come on in a few minutes, and have some questions, because can I tell you, I'll tell you a story about that. So who I choose to be, my vision, my mission, my purpose is probably more it is to let my light shine when I leave out. When I go, I just want to let people feel good, even if they don't talk or anything. And so it happens a lot if I go to Aldi's, a whole lot if I go to Aldi's. And so I meet people there, and I used to shop at Aldi's in Germany, which was amazing. I loved it. But I met Molly last night at Aldi's. And so she's on here, and we had a good conversation, and we had a big hug. She got my Candy Bar Hugs book. And so it's really fun to recognize that, when you can just let your light, just be the best you, and people are attracted to that. And we get to make new friends and build community that way. So I'm grateful. Honestly, I don't usually have the chat open because I can't see it. It's
that's really powerful. I'll tell you if anybody else pops in, because if you are watching, you're watching live, leave a comment. And it's great to hear from Molly. Good to hear from you. And I think it brings it back to this point that you were saying, some people aren't going to receive, I think of teenagers, I raised 4 boys, and they're all grown now. In fact, my youngest turned 27 yesterday, and 2 grandsons. And, sometimes when your teenagers are going through those, what quote unquote rebellious years, they're not going to listen to mom and dad, but they will listen to somebody else. And so you can be that somebody else for somebody else's kids, because I grew up on the farm in Oklahoma, and we were allowed to beat each other's kids. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but the point is, not beat them, but hold them accountable to standards of right and wrong in the community. And so I say that's exactly right. Lift your voice, share your voice. And somebody did that for me when I was 11, because I didn't realize this until I went to public school, that I was a stutterer. I grew up on the farm in Oklahoma. There were only 4 kids in our 4 square acre mile square block. So in our square mile, which is like 4 miles square, there was David, there was Tony, and then there was my brother Kenny and I. And so the 4 of us, we all played on the same baseball team. We went to church together. We were always together. But when I started kindergarten, I started 1st grade, and I met new kids, I stuttered. And it was so frustrating because I knew what it was like to have a message on the inside, but not be able to get it out. And at some point there during the year, the librarian, bless her heart, thank God for her. I don't remember her name. I would love to look her up on social media and thank her, but she found a book written by an 11-year-old kid, and she gives me this book. And this book, as an 11-year-old, changed my life, because it's written by an 11-year-old kid. I don't remember the name of the book or the name of the author that wrote it, or I would thank him. Someday in heaven, I can thank him. But I was so impressed and amazed that this kid wrote this book about believing all that's possible, step into your greatest life and your imaginations. And there was a sailboat on the cover of this book. And I can remember reading this book on my family farm, 30 acres in Oklahoma, and surrounded by my cows and my dog, Joe. And I would just start to dream about what my life could be like. And so I did receive from this kid, and the planes would fly over, and I would look at those planes, and I would tell my parents and my brother and everybody that would listen, you know, one day I'm going to fly in those planes all over the world. And I've flown to 30 nations and spoken to tens of thousands of people, and we're just getting started. But I wonder if my life would be different had this 11-year-old kid not written a book, and had this librarian not been the person to give it to me. And so sometimes it's writing your own book to change the world, and then sometimes it's sharing somebody else's content. I love sharing good content. You know, you're coming out with Split Second Transformation, and on your birthday, which is epic and great. And I think that's the best time to do it. I always ask people when you're launching your book, hey, when's your birthday? When's a special day? Let's launch it on your birthday, Charla. So, I mean, this book is 30, change your habits, change your life.
Change
is that
your,
what it
change
is?
your words, change your life, 31
Change
daily
your words.
practices. Yeah. And it'll be my 70th birthday that on November 30th, we'll be launching it. We're going to have a big party on December 2nd in downtown Fort Worth, and looking forward to all of that. I'm grateful for some friends that are helping out with that a little bit. And then, yeah, so launching this book
Birthday
that
props.
on it, you talk about 16 years. I wrote 16 of the 31 chapters in January of 2019. And I'm like, then I didn't finish it till this year. I'm like, I guess it was for such a time as this. It didn't come out. And so here we are, we're cleaning it up, wrapping it up. This year's been a really big year for me. But Michael, you have, I want to just, you have a heart for a lot of things. You do travel, you do speak, you do uplift. You are, you know, you've got 4 books for powerful female immigrants. There's a lot of things that you are, your fingers are in, right? And so, but one of them, you know, and I'd like to know the backstory. You are very inspired to help with the human trafficking, and there's so much going on that has been going on for years, decades, I guess, or centuries maybe, but we're just, it's coming to the forefront. And so you have a 1040 Impact as your nonprofit.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about how did that come about? Because, you know, we're just in our normal everyday lives, we don't necessarily see it, although I'm much more aware of it now than I was.
Start this story with I want to start this answer. Thanks for asking that, with a story, and say the first chapter I ever wrote, I wrote from jail. And, you know, Paul the Apostle wrote some of the best words he penned were from jail. I wasn't in jail for the same reason as Paul the Apostle. He was there for preaching the gospel. I was in jail for barroom fighting on my 40th birthday. So my dad calls me up. I'm 39. I'm about to turn 40. He's like, hey, your birthday tomorrow. Let's go. Let me take you I'm going to be in town. Let me take you to lunch for your birthday. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great, Dad. Let's go to my favorite restaurant. See you at noon. Now, Dad is never late. He's always early. Dad grew up on the dairy farm in Oklahoma, and I'm always on time. And so that night, the night before my dad's coming to town, I go to a bar to have a drink, and I'm drinking alone. And I'm 39 and a half, and I'm reflective, and I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm drinking alone. So I end up getting in a bar fight. I spend the night in jail. And I get bail myself out about 3 p.m. And I know Dad's worried about me. And so I call him and I'm like, you know, Dad, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Sorry you were worried about me. And then I told him where I was. But since I had that night to sober up and think about my life, I realized, you know, one of the things on my bucket list was to run a marathon by the age of 40. Now I'm 6 months from my 40th birthday. All right, I guess at that time, let me back up a little bit. I decided to run my marathon at 40. 6 months later, when I'm 39 and a half, I remember what I decided that night when I was in the jail. And one of them was to run a marathon by the time I'm 40. So you
So
can
tell me,
really,
you were in jail the night before your birthday? So
yeah.
the
I
timeline
was
got a
I
little
was
messed
I
up.
was in
So
jail. Yeah, I was in jail on my 39th, going into my 39th
Eve.
birthday, 38, going into my 39th year, my 39th birthday, I was in jail. Okay.
Okay, so I thought it was your 40th. Okay, now we're clear. Okay.
Yeah. So, but one thing I decided from that is I made goals for myself. I didn't have anything to write it down with. One of the things was to run a marathon. One of the next things was to write my first book. But I got the content for the first book setting in jail because I learned so much about myself running my first marathon. And when you run a marathon, you need a year to train. And I realized 6 months before my 40th birthday that, oh, I decided that night in jail, I'm going to run my marathon before I turned 40. And so I'm a couch potato. I go out that day thinking I could run a few miles. I ran a block and I'm gasping for air. The next, I'm like, it's a bad day. I'll try it tomorrow. Next day I go out, I run a block and 2 mailboxes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need help. So I go to Google and I order new running shoes. And I'm like, this is not enough. I need more. And I find a running group and I join a local running group called Fleet Feet, which is a national chain. And I made some great friends. And those friends were my 5 a.m. friends on the Saturday mornings when we were doing the long 18 and 20 mile runs in the 20-degree weather. And I'm like, you know what? If it wasn't for me putting this on social media saying I'm going to run my marathon, if it wasn't knowing I'm going to let down my 18 friends in my running group if I don't show up, and they were there on my before my 40th birthday, I ran the Route 66 marathon, and all 4 of my sons step out from the viewing area and run the last 3 miles with me. Greatest day of my life. All great things you do start with a decision. Most people never start. And I love this Zig Ziglar quote. Zig Ziglar turned 97 in heaven on Monday, and we were there to celebrate, Charla. And I love what somebody says. You don't have to start to be great. You don't, how's the quote? You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. That is the quote. And so just get started. There it is right there.
Yeah, big quote. Says Zig Ziglar, of course, is a huge piece of my life, and I'm grateful to have you and I ended up every Monday morning for decades. They've had what they called a Monday morning devotional.
40 years.
That was Ziglar's first. His 97th birthday celebration Monday morning. It's now on Zoom. I used to get out there and go to Plano when they were up there, but I was
in person.
And it's open to anybody. So people that are Ziglarites, that you can actually go and enjoy that.
In fact, quick plug here, because we're actually launching a book Friday, and I'll get to the nonprofit. Thanks for asking me about that. But we're actually launching a book called The Book of Mentors, and Eric Swanson and John Kovac are putting this out on Friday. Let me see if I can. And it's called The Book of Mentors, and it's featuring the life of Zig Ziglar. So that launches Friday. So that's a lot of fun. It's Key to Success, honoring the legacy of Zig Ziglar. And I invited them Monday and they couldn't make it. But I remember when Zig passed, the internet blew up. It was kind of like when Jim Rohn passed, the internet blew up with so much love and appreciation and so many people that he helped. But back to my nonprofit you asked me about. I've been in the nonprofit space for a long time. I was a pastor for 14 years, and I've always had a heart for missions, particularly the 1040 window, which is the greatest area of the unreached people group from North Africa of Egypt all the way to China and North Korea. That area, it represents the greatest poverty and the greatest lack of gospel witness and hearing the name of Jesus and having the Bible translated. So it's primarily Muslim nations that are the most closed and hostile to the gospel, and it represents the areas that are the most persecuted Christians are located. And so that's an area we pray for every day. Our staff does, our team does. We have a full-time staff of 25 in Pakistan. We have 4 safe houses in Pakistan. What started with 55 children that had been orphaned by a fire 8 years ago. I received the call on this, and I wanted to check it out for myself. So I flew to Pakistan, and you can Google Joseph Colony Fire Pakistan, and you can see the news about it. It was an arson. It was a religious persecution that the radical Muslims set a Christian colony on fire, and it created 55 orphans, and 200 parents were killed. 200 people were killed in that fire. And all of the children that we took in as orphans, we took a gutted building that had been destroyed by fire, and we cleaned it up and painted it, and the government let us occupy it. And so we pay the utilities on that building. It's a 3-story safe house, and we've gone on to rescue. We have a total of 394 children now, counting the original 55 that were orphaned by that fire. Because every month or so we get a call that says, hey, there's 4 girls that have been trafficked, or there's a mother and her 3 daughters that have been trafficked, and they're made to work in the brothel every night. We did a rescue a week and a half ago, and it was a woman whose husband was running drugs and gambling. He was dealing drugs and a gambler, and he was killed. He was shot, and it left her a widow. She's 35, and her children are 50. Her girls are 15 and 11, and the son is 9. And the girls were being trafficked with their mom, and the boy is 9. He's traumatized. He's seeing all this, and he can't defend his sisters and his mother. And so we were able to rescue them and to get them the medical care that they needed and the help that they needed. They're in one of our 4 safe houses in Lahore, Pakistan right now. So this is a great area where they're getting medical care, they're getting education, they're getting the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, and they're also being prepared for life with occupational skills like sewing, like coding, and like cosmetology, so they don't have to go back into human trafficking, because the situation is so desperate in some countries like it is there, that parents will sell their kids. We saw this when the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan 2 years ago. Parents were so desperate that they were selling their daughters because they didn't want them being raped daily by the Taliban, that they sold them to who they knew were human traffickers that were going to take them to Pakistan. We were able to intercept and purchase 54 girls, get them the care they need. So every month almost, our numbers go up. And right now we're feeding 40,000 plus meals per month to our 394 kids and our 25 staff. It's a total of 415. So if you do the math, that's 3 meals a day, 30 days out of the month. It's 40,000 meals that we're taking care of them. We're purchasing our main property, and we will have it paid off in July. We did a 15-month note on that, so actually we'll no longer have a rent payment come July. And one big thing we're doing, Charla, that we're asking for help with this Christmas is we did a campaign called Christmas in July, and we raised about $7,000 because we want to have a nice Christian Christmas for everybody. We're going to buy them clothes and books, and we'll have some Bibles for each safe house and also for the staff. And our full-time staff, most of them half of them, more than half of them get paid, and then some of them are volunteer. And so we need to raise $10,000. We're about $2,500 short. And so by December 1st, we need to be able to forward that money to them so they can purchase a nice little package, Christmas package, because these are orphans, and these are orphans that, other than a few parents that are with some of the kids that have been rescued, that become a part of the family, they're growing up in a safe environment where it's a loving Christian environment of nurture. With our vetted staff, and it's just an amazing work. I've taken my board members over there 3 times, and we're going to go back soon. But it is it's a high risk area, but they are very safe. The one thing we did this summer and this fall is we put new security lights and TV monitors, security monitors in all 4 of our locations. There was a massive persecution uprising in August against Christians in Pakistan. 25 churches were burned. And 400 Christian homes were burned to the ground. And fortunately, none of our kids, none of our staff were hurt. And we actually donated 100 care packages to families and to churches that needed that. So it's an ongoing work, and we appreciate everybody's love and support. We've got people that donate $10 a month, and we've got people that donate up to $500 a month, corporate donors and individual grassroots grandmas that are just praying for us and giving us $10 a month. And every bit makes a difference. And Beyond Publishing triples all the donations. So when $10 comes in, that turns into $40. And when $40 comes in, that turns into $160. So it's really making a huge difference. So thanks for asking about our nonprofit.
So Michael, thank you so much for sharing all that. That's amazing. And so how do people find you? What are we looking for? How do they, first of all, get involved with the 1040? How do they find Beyond Publishing? How do they, where do you want people to go? The time is ticking.
Time is ticking away. We've got all the links in the show notes, so be sure and scour the show notes for some great things we've got going on. But they can go to michaeldbutler.com and find everything. So if you're an author, you're wanting to write a book, you're wanting feedback on your book, I will give you a free book consult valued at $500 if you've got a question about your book and you say, hey, I just want to know about my book cover, my book title, who I should market my book to. Should I include this in my book or not include that in my book? Jump on my calendar at michaeldbutler.com. I'll give you a free book consult. Also, you can link directly to the nonprofit there or go directly to 1040impact.org. And every month we do a great webinar for new writers or writers that are just stuck and want to get their book out. They feel called to write a book, but they've been trying to write it for months or years. And just go to beyondwebinar.com. At beyondwebinar.com, you can RSVP for the next one. These fill up quick every month, so be sure to register quickly and you'll get an invite and a Google invite to your calendar so you can actually write your book. I teach you for a solid hour how to write your book in 1 hour, and we go through how to structure the table of contents and do everything. The other thing we're doing right now that's really exciting that you mentioned in the green room is we've got 2 gentlemen from Hollywood that have optioned books for movies and adaptations to books to film. So if you've got a book, a fiction or nonfiction book, and you're like, you know what, I've written a book, no matter what the topic is, split second transformation, candy bar hugs, or whatever, you're going to want to be on this webinar that we've got coming up this month. And go to the link book2movie.org at book2movie.org, because you're going to get free information for 60 to 90 minutes from people that help make Tom Cruise, Cuba Gooding Jr., these amazing actors and actresses, and get these books optioned for the movies that got Tom Cruise's, risky business got his career started. So check it out at book2movie.org and 1040impact.org to make an impact, to make a Christmas donation. It would help us this time of year and help us give our kids and help them feel so much love from you. Thank you very much. And Charla, great being with you on your show today. And I really believe that you're making a difference with 37 shows. And
this is 36. And by the way, let me just put this out here for you. March 1st will be 1 year anniversary from my very first show with Win-Win Women. And it will also be an event. I'm expecting it to have, we're doing International Women's Day events around the globe. And I'm going to have one here in my North Richland Hills or Fort Worth area. And on March 1st, as a celebration of my 1 year show, as International Women's Day with Win-Win Women. And I'm going to launch Outrageously Courageous, Bold Faith, No Fear, Step Towards the Gun. That book I intend to launch March 1st. So we're getting them out. I made these. It's so funny. I think most people don't do it this way. I've made the book covers long before I wrote the books. I had that part. But it's fun because I can then market, a little bit around that. So.
We had an author recently on TV in North Carolina, in Charlotte, and his book wasn't out yet. Dave Ferguson, boss or leader, and it wasn't out yet, and he was stressed out. And I said, "Why are you stressed?" He says, "I'm on the news tomorrow, and my books aren't here yet." I said, "Go to Kinko's, print out your book cover." He printed it out. I said, "Scotch tape it to a cover." He held it up. He sold 9 copies of the book, just sending people to his website, and then he got 2 consulting clients out of that. And so, all day long, every day, show up with a book cover. You're still writing the content. That's fine. If you've got a great idea. So I was in Beverly Hills, California, not long ago. And I was doing Uber, and I was sharing Uber with another co-writer, and he jumps in Beverly Hills, and he's smiling from ear to ear. And I said, "Wow, you got a big smile on your face." And I said, "What are you so happy about?" And he says, "Well, I just picked up," it was Cedars-Sinai Hospital, the premier hospital in Beverly Hills, probably the world. And he shows me a $1.2 million check. I'm like, wow, That's one of the biggest checks I've seen in a long time. And I said, what's this for? And he said, they just bought my software, my patient management software. I said, oh, cool. What does it do? He said, I don't know. We haven't created it yet. He said, this was a down payment. Next week, they're going to tell my 300 engineers from India what they want the software to do. And I'm like, that's a great idea, because now you've given me ideas to write books. You know, it's my friend, our mutual friend, Sharon Lecter, New York Times bestselling author. Her and I have shared a lot of stages together pre-pandemic. And I remember the last 5 times I've heard her speak and been on stage with her. When she gets on stage, she tells you about her next 5 books. And she says, this book's coming out next month. And then this summer, this book's coming out. She's doing exactly what you're doing with Split Second Transformation, Change Your Words, Change Your Life, and Outrageously Courageous. These all fit into your brand story. So you want to get these words out, because the biggest thing, Charla, of everything that a book does for you: open doors, credibility, charge more for coaching and speaking, getting you on more stages as a speaker, and getting you more media interviews. You know, you're 38% more likely to get the media interview or the stage opportunity, according to speakers bureaus. If you have a book, over the guest that doesn't have a book, is you create a course out of it on the back end. You start a mastermind, a coaching program, all these things that you can monetize, because when people read your book, okay, they don't know who you are. They spend $20, $25 for a book for somebody because there's one chapter in that book that speaks to them. And they're like, I'm going to buy Split Second Transformations because this chapter speaks to me and it's going to change my life, or it's going to change my cousin's life. And they buy the book and it changes their life. But they're like, now that I know you, I want to engage with you more. I want to buy everything you got. I want to sign up for your coaching program. I heard you on a podcast. I want to sign up for your retreat. They want to do more with you. They want to do a deep dive. So you want to give people the opportunity to engage more fully with you. And so that's what a book does. But the greatest thing, Charla, and I'll throw it back to you, is this, that I hear from all of our 791 books we publish, authors in 64 countries. The best feedback I get from authors is the personal growth that their book gives for them. Better than therapy, the personal growth that this did for me. And I say, if you're in real estate, it's like your book becomes the anchor tenant. It raises the value of your entire life because you wrote the book, and it's the manure that you had to shovel through and dig through to produce what people see on the outside now. You're not faking it anymore. Maybe you used to fake it till you made it, but now you get the book out and you can articulate the joy that you can bring to the world because you've been through the Single Dad Survival Guide, because you've been through the book idea to bestseller in 30 days. You've been through the candy bar hugs and all the learning that came with that. You're ready to bring that organic, delicious garden to the world. So what are you waiting for? Jump on my calendar. I'll give you a free consult. And I'm not afraid to tell you, if your baby looks ugly, we'll figure it out together.
That's awesome. That is so great. So I'm once again, I'm so incredibly grateful that you would step in, because I had a last minute cancellation. I was in really sad about that, and really glad that you were able to take this moment, because it's a good moment. I mean, with my book launch coming up, and so it's a good time for us to have had this conversation and get this speaking and get it out there. And this is I'm just going to thank you so much for being my guest. And then, maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, we love it. Definitely want to come back. Definitely want to have you on the Michael D Show, michaeld.tv, where we interview amazing guests from around the world. And
see, there's another one. So we got another plug. But you're everywhere. You're everywhere. You're everywhere, and you've got a lot of wonderful support, people that just love you. And we do meet some incredible people when we come together in your events. So thank you. I appreciate it so much. So as we end, as we close here, I'm just going to suggest that, and I do this often, I want you, who you are listening right now, that you are perfect exactly who and where you are. You cannot be loved more or less by God or by me. You are perfect exactly who and where you are right this minute. Receive that and claim that you really, are perfect. There is no reason for you to defeat yourself, self-defeating. Let's talk. Michael's here to talk. I'm here to talk. Let's talk. If you have any concern around that if you don't feel worthy, because you are. And so as we close, and I always end up saying, I want you to be blessed. And I ask that you totally choose joy.
Parting is such sweet sorrow. The Charla Anderson Show, encouraging you to stand strong and courageous with bold faith, no fear, immense hope, kindness, and love, especially towards yourself. Visit charlaanderson.com for replays, blogs, and more on her ever-expanding website, as well as watch her live TV show on winwinwomen.tv, Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And so that we can continue learning together and growing this community of beautiful souls, we invite you to share the Charla Anderson Show with your circle of friends. Until we meet again next week, remember always, choose joy.